and impartial advice worth following. Shelagh Fogarty on LBC.
Right, now, I've always been proud of him, is what she said. The words of Miriam Gonzalez in 2010 when asked if she was proud of her husband, Nick Clegg, as it became clear that he was about to become Deputy Prime Minister of the coalition government. We call it now. It was just a coalition government at the time. Now she's on a mission to make girls and young women proud of themselves with her Inspiring Women campaign. And she's here now. Good afternoon to you, Miriam.
Hello, good afternoon.
Great to see you. Tell me a little bit more about this Inspiring Women campaign.
Well, it's a campaign that we launched like 1 year and a half ago, more or less, and it's a very simple concept. We are bringing women, all sorts of women, fabulous women that you have in this country, to schools to talk to girls, 13, 14 years old girls in state schools. And we have been all over the country. It's a national campaign. We have been from Glasgow to Essex, going through Birmingham and Liverpool and Manchester.
And is the central idea to make sure that girls in these schools can see women from all kinds of different walks of life, and if a little spark goes off, they can remember that moment and off they go? Exactly.
So we are trying to put a drop there so that we believe that it's easier to dream to be it if you have seen it. So expose those women to them so that they can see the different models and roles that they can play themselves, and also so that they realize that they may look fantastic on paper or when they see the CVs, but they are real women, and they were little girls like them so long ago.
And what do these little girls and teenagers, what kinds of questions do they ask back, particularly of you? I wonder, do they wade straight in and start asking about politics with the wife of a Deputy Prime Minister?
The questions actually, they vary from school to school, but you get quite a lot of questions about the plan. They all want to see whether you had a plan when you were their age, and you can see their shoulders literally relaxing
when
as you tell them you didn't have a plan. And lots of questions about self-confidence, quite a lot of questions that surprised me about putting together work and family, because I honestly do not remember being worried about it when I was 13 and 14, so I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly different.
I think maybe it wasn't talked about as much then anyway.
Probably.
It was just expected, whereas now I think the conversation has to be had, so is being had. I wonder whether that's the case.
And that's a good thing.
It is a good thing. You talked about self-confidence, and preparing to talk to you today, I was thinking about, I just thought, well, where did I get my self-confidence? Because I'm a pretty confident person, and I thought, where did I get my self-confidence from, a sense of happiness from? And I know it's from my mother. You know, in terms of being a woman, I thought it's from my mother, fantastic role model. I had aunties who did all kinds of different things. Some of them were mothers, some of them were not. Some of them had careers, others didn't. One was a nun, one was a historian, one was a teacher, one was a nurse. You know, so I had, as you said, if you haven't seen it, you don't necessarily know how to do it. Where do you get your confidence from?
I think that by preparing. I over-prepare myself. I am very aware of the fact that sometimes I don't need it, but still it gives me a feeling of confidence when I do. And then at some point I just jump in. I can assure you that before coming here I was thinking, what is a Spanish person whose mother tongue is not English coming to talk in LBC?
It's fine.
With this incredible woman, and here I am, and it's fine so far.
Yeah, it will be fine. You can relax. Your shoulders can go down and you can relax. Nothing bad is going to happen in here. We were talking in the first hour of the programme, actually, before you joined us, about the FTSE 100 board, the statistic of women who are on the boards of those companies now, and it is travelling in the right direction. Is that something that you think is really important?
I think it is important, but it's as important as many other things. I think that generally there is too much focus on the boards when the issue is pretty much all across different professions. If you look at the different professions, pretty much at the top, we score generally less than 10%. So it's not only about the boards, it's more general. And I think that in relation to the boards, something that happens too is that this is not looked at enough from the point of view of good governance. The issue about the boards is that unless the boards are representative, they do not fulfill their mission. So it's not only about having women, it's about being, diverse in the wider sense and inclusive. It's not good enough to have them there. They need to speak up.
And it's about fulfilling a genuine business responsibility rather than just an equality responsibility.
Towards shareholders and towards society at large.
And can I ask you as well about whether you think that organisations or campaigns like Inspiring Women, they tend to be, there's nothing wrong with this, they tend to be represented by high-profile women like yourself and people like Claire Balding and Martha Lane Fox, that's all good, great, no problem. But in our lives, we tend to be inspired and regard as role models the people around us more, don't we? The people that is that part of the campaign as well? Not just about the big names.
Not at all. This is for all sorts of women, and we actually make a big point about this, that this is not about the famous women and celebrities, it's about all women. And when people say that there are not enough female role models, it's because they do not realize that the role models are not necessarily always in glossy magazines,
they're surrounding
that they are in the streets, right? Yeah. And I think that this is truly important. The girls realize that they can look for role models wherever they are. They are all there. You just need to look for them.
Now, it's a great pleasure to meet you because I have interviewed your husband several times.
I know. He lives here in LBC.
He lives in LBC. I've never met him in LBC, actually, but I've interviewed him many times. And he... when I first met him to do an interview for Total Politics magazine a year after he'd become the Liberal Democrat leader, at the end of our long conversation about politics, we then did more familial questions, more sort of real life questions. And he tells me that you make fantastic croquetas de jamón.
I knew that this was coming towards the kitchen.
Yeah. Everyone's obsessed with kitchens. But anyway, he said at the time they were the best thing ever.
Well, listen, I feel at a disadvantage talking about the kitchens because I only have one kitchen and I don't even have a sofa in my kitchen. But when it comes to cooking, there is no contest.
You're better.
I'm better.
You're better.
There are a few things I do well. Cooking is one of them.
Well, I was going to sort of give you advance notice of the question about croquetas in the vain hope that you might bring some in, but sadly not. He also revealed that he said that he liked dancing with you.
Yeah, you like dancing.
You like dancing together. Did you meet doing flamenco? Is that true?
No,
I read it.
No, we didn't. No. We met studying. Flamenco came after.
Now, hang on. You have to say that because he's the Deputy Prime Minister. No, I met my husband studying, not dancing sevillanas.
Yeah, I know. It's like when I'm being asked all the time, like, what impressed you of him? And it's like if when you are 20, you're impressed by anything else.
Of course you are.
Than by the looks.
Yes, with. He's a dish. He's a bit of a dish, isn't he?
Well, that's what I think as the wife.
Of course you do. I remember saying in that piece I wrote about him that he's good looking in a head boy kind of way.
Like you're talking about my husband
I'm
here,
sorry,
so careful with the comments.
I know. Careful with the compliments. Piropos. Can I ask you as well about, again, I spoke to him about the fact that the two of you are raising your children in the Catholic tradition.
Yeah.
And he is an agnostic. Is that a comfortable accommodation between you all?
Well, it is, yes. I have faith, and I have always thought that faith is a gift, and it has helped me in my own life to cope with some of the difficulties. I mean, this is probably too personal a comment, but when I lost my father is what carried me through, and I hope that I can pass it on to my children, or at least I will try to bring it there, and then it's up to them to make up their mind. But we are very tolerant, generally, of all faiths, and in our families we have all sorts of faiths as well.
Yeah. It's interesting, just before we came on air with you, you and I were briefly chatting about the terrible blow to Spain at the moment of
devastating day, really.
Yeah, the loss of so many people in that plane crash. And again, that links to what you said there about faith, and it's a country of faith, isn't it?
And so long. I just don't know what you think during all those 8 minutes, but terrible tragedy. And our thoughts are with all the families. There are families of every nationality. So.
Yeah, and the leaders of some of those nationalities have gone to the crash site today, haven't they? I want to move on to just a brief word about your little boys. Nothing too intrusive, I promise. Antonio, Miguel, Alberto. There's no doubt who chose the names there.
But they had Clegg afterwards.
I know.
So this was to compensate.
It was to compensate. And Clegg is quite a sort of hard sound, isn't it? The actual sound of the name. So Antonio Miguel Alberto.
Well, the first was my father, so he couldn't say no. The second, I almost died when I was giving birth, so he had to give it to me.
Yeah. And then there has to be a Miguel in there somewhere, doesn't there, as well?
And Miguel is the patron of my village. So,
what will happen if, when they're adults, they look at your beautiful name and think, hang on a sec, I'd quite like that one, because in Spain there is a tradition of mixing and matching the mothers' and fathers' names, isn't there, and the husbands and fathers'
You can.
names.
No, my boys are Cleggs, yes.
Are they?
I don't think they...
No. Okay, that's that. It also struck me that here in the UK at the moment, we've gone completely crazy about Richard III. Quite rightly. It's a fascinating thing. And yet, hidden away in the news column inches, the burial site of Cervantes has been found, we
who
think.
lived in Valladolid, where I come from.
Yeah.
So
They
are not quite sure, are
They're
they?
not sure yet. But are they getting a lot? Is it getting a lot of prominence, that story?
It is, but not as much as here. I think that here you have much more of a tradition of celebrating history, which is wonderful.
Yeah. Just finally, before you go, you know, because you're sitting in the chair in which he does his phone in on LBC. You've taken over the chair. His final call, Clegg, is this week before the general election. Can we sneak in a question from you that he's not listening now? So a question from you that we can just give him.
Well, not necessarily a question, but now that I have been here, I can understand why he likes coming here, because it is fun. So, yes.
Good. That's nice. What a charmer. Thank you very much indeed. Miriam,
you.
Great to meet you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.
A real pleasure. Miriam Gonzalez, thanks very much indeed for coming and talking to LBC. It's 3:00.
On FM, online, on your mobile, and on digital radio. Leading Britain's